Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Tudor-Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. First, if you are in Brussels Friday 26th of September, you are invited to drop by Place de Luxembourg for the second The Grant Brussels meetup. I will be there from 5 o'clock. Come for a drink and a chat with me and other The Grant listeners. Go to thegrant.eu for more information. This episode is part of my new SME series with focus on financial rules and regulations for SMEs in EU funding. Everybody wants SMEs. Everybody talks about SMEs. SMEs are a topic of continuous interest from the EU Commission. I have myself been wanting to zoom in on them since I started this podcast 3 years ago, but they are not so easy to get on board. So I start somewhere else. Alicja Grzegorzek Carrascosa is co-founder of Polite Europe, which is a consultancy company specialized in legal and financial counseling and management for SMEs and EU-funded projects. We agreed to do a handful of episodes zooming in on exactly this, rules and regulations for SMEs in EU projects. And why is that a good idea? That's because this is what worries SMEs most, and this is where they often really burn their fingers on the wonderful EU-funded projects. This is the third episode, and here we zoom in on how to implement an EIC project, where we get geeky on lump sum issues and how to deal with this. Important for SMEs as well as for SME funding facilitators. Please enjoy. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today, we are going to take our third go in the SME and freelancers series. And when I say we, I mean Alicja and myself. Alicja, welcome.
Hello, good afternoon.
I always choke on your name, so I just talk to Alicja this time.
Maybe on the next one, you will be ready to pronounce it.
It's whenever I have to do my speaks, intro and outro speaks for these episodes, it takes me a few takes to to do it. No, Alicja, welcome. Short introduction.
Yeah, hi. So thank you for inviting me. Today, a few words about me. So I'm the co-founder of company Polite. At Polite, we support organizations, mainly SMEs, and today we will be also talking mainly about small medium enterprises, and we focus on legal and financial project management. And as today we will be focusing on EIC Accelerator. Then I mentioned that we've been supporting more than 150 companies with the implementation phase of their EIC Accelerator projects, just the implementation phase. So today we are not talking about proposal writing. Actually, Polite is not involved in proposal writing. We don't write proposals. And today we will focus what happens once the proposal is funded, because sometimes we focus on the success of the proposal being funded, forgetting that this is just a starting point, right? That then we have to implement the project according to the rules, and that with the grant, not only rights are coming, but also obligations. So personally, I've been working with European projects for more than 15 years, always focusing on supporting SMEs. And I'm also vice president of the European Association of Innovation Consultants, an organization gathering innovative consultants in the field of European research and innovation projects. So also through this association, we have an opportunity to influence, to have clear rules and clarifications from the EC.
Yeah, it's just a baseline for the listeners on the episodes that we do together, Alicja. That's on financial rules and regulation for especially the small ones, yeah, and how they small companies, how they are dealing with it, because you have a lot of there's a maze, yeah, often if suddenly things get a little technical, or if your situation is a little special, but not more special than you that companies like you can survive by supporting them. So this is what we try to do here. We try to guide people, or an audible guide on at least the first steps, and then they can reach out to you, Alicja.
Yeah, first of all, they would need to win a grant, because as I said, we don't help to get funding, but once they are funded, then definitely we can help them to make sure that everything is implemented according to the rules.
Indeed. And let me say, this is not a sponsored episode, so Alicja has not paid anything for me to recommend her, but I know she's good.
I hope so. I hope so.
Hello, I'm Chiara Ligori, and I'm so happy that I've joined this networking event. I invite you all to listen to the Grant podcast.
Alicja, let's just move into the fly-in. So, short overall introduction. So, the EIC Accelerator. Why is that a hot topic?
Yeah, well, it is, and I would say it's been a hot topic for years, especially for SMEs. Maybe for those who are not familiar with this funding scheme and they're just thinking about possibly applying, just to explain that this is a funding program under Horizon Europe, and it offers support to the SMEs that have deep tech, innovative, game-changing product or services with ambition to scale up. And usually these companies are in the moment that they need funding, they're looking for funding, but the risks involved in the project are still too high for private investors to go alone to invest. That's why they apply for EIC Accelerator, because this is a great option to get some funding. And actually, this is one of the interesting thing about this funding scheme, something special, I would say, under Horizon Europe, that we are talking about blended finance. So it's not only a grant component, which as always is non-dilutive, but we have also the investment component, which is managed by EIC fund, or better said, possibility to get this investment. So then if you approach potential investors, but you already have a grant and you already have EIC fund willing to invest in you, it should be easier to convince a potential investor to invest in your company. Also, why is it a hot topic? Because this is a very good fit for SMEs. And usually, under Horizon Europe, we have collaborative projects. So you have a consortium with 5, 10, even 15 partners. And these projects are at a lower TRL level. So it's really still a long trip to go to the market, but with EIC Accelerator, this is this moment just before the commercialization can start. So I would say it's very unique, but at the same time, it's a very difficult moment for the companies because they are very close, but they still need a lot of money to be able to go to the market. And last, I would also say that now, after the years of this program being active, it started to become kind of a quality stamp. Okay, so if you are an SME and if you've been granted EIC Accelerator, somehow it should be easier to attract investors, and also this program's been recognized in different sectors because it's very competitive. In the last call, it was just 4% of the companies applying were funded. So you can say, okay, we've been selected, and the process is quite long and very strict. So if you passed it, probably it's already a confirmation that it's worth investing in you.
That's probably the dilemma with the EIC, but it has always been like this with the SME corner of the framework program. It's because it's bottom up, so you don't have a defined topic that you go for.
It has now, but it has both. So you have.
It's broad, right? It's energy.
No, because now they go with so-called challenges. So you have some challenges, but still you can go for open topics. So definitely any sector, any topic is okay.
Oh, see, that's me not being updated on my funding programs. But what I wanted to say was that it has been a big problem always since I've been myself sitting in the SME program committee back in 2009. And back then, it was also an issue that too many applications, then the success rate drops. Should we make it more difficult to approach so the success rate gets higher, or But it's so this, yeah. But it's the good thing is that it's popular, right?
Yeah, it's a mono-beneficiary, how it's called. So just one partner can apply.
Yeah, it's indeed the key, as you also is de-risking. Yeah, it's last steps before the last push. Couple of years with investing heavily in getting things ready so they can start moving to the market without crashing as a company.
Yeah, and also you don't have to share the results, because this is many times very, very challenging in collaborative projects, right? To think about exploitation plan, which is beneficial for all of the partners. I mean, it's really, really difficult. And in this case, one partner, all the results will go to this partner.
That's that. Lump sum. So the lump sum has been moved into it. We're still in the fly-in here. So when was it introduced? This year, last year?
It was introduced in 2024. So actually now we are in the second year. And now we are starting with the projects from last year, being in the phase of first reportings, progress meeting, even some projects that are just about finishing. So now this year we will be able to see the full cycle, right? Because if we are talking about lump sum, so we cannot evaluate it properly, in my opinion, until the moment at least some projects are finished, right? Because otherwise we are focusing just on the first phases. So yeah, this is what happened last year in 2024, that they changed from actual cost to lump sum cost, and lump sum was introduced in EIC Accelerator.
So understanding the shift to lump sum funding, that's our next block. How is lump sum funding changing financial planning here? So we have three bullets. How lump sum funding changes financial planning, and we have the challenges of cost justification under lump sum rules, and then we have early lessons from the transition. So hit me.
Okay, so if we start with changes in financial planning, the biggest work in terms of budgeting, it's before the project is submitted. Okay, so we need to dedicate a lot of time at the proposal stage to prepare the budget, because we need to plan the budget in detail with actual costs. Still, you needed to present the budget, but you needed you didn't need all these details. So this is the biggest change, which involves time that you have to dedicate to prepare a budget, because you really need to detail every single item, and also as the evaluator will be focusing a lot on the budget, because this is evaluated upfront, not during reporting as it used to be with actual cost. Also, you have to be very careful, because if you don't explain in detail a specific cost item, the proposal can be rejected because of this. And also, this is a lot of responsibility on the reviewer. If he or she is not convinced about the budget, it's not going to risk, right? Because they know this is lump sum, and they know that the budget is not going to be checked at a later stage. So they have to make sure that all the costs are reasonable and so on.
Yeah.
Another changes, I know we are talking about financial planning, but this is connected. It's also technical work. Okay, so from the very beginning, you need to assign very specific costs to the technical work packages. So also you have to be careful when you are planning, because as you will be paid based on output, Then if you promise too much, or if you define the deliverable milestones, which will be very difficult to achieve, if you don't achieve them in the end, you will not get money. But on the other hand, if they are not ambitious enough, you are not going to get funding. So it's really difficult to find a balance here with the budget. So I would say, in terms of changes, it's time dedication, time you need to dedicate to prepare a budget from the very beginning. And when in the end your proposal is funded, so once again we are talking about 4% more or less. In the last call, more than 900 companies in the end, they didn't manage to get funding, but they spend a lot of time budgeting. So if you are funded, at least you can say, okay, this investment, this time that we invested made sense, right? Because now we will get funding and so on. But what about the rest of 900 companies? These SMEs who are deciding that they need to dedicate time, plan the budget, and so on. It doesn't. If they are not funded, it doesn't mean that their project is not good. Basically, there was no enough budget. So I would say this is the biggest challenge, to find time. But in the end, still almost 1,000 applicants per call who are deciding to spend this time to prepare this budget.
This is probably the oldest dilemma of the whole system. If you count together all the man hours spent across globally in the EU, in all socioeconomic sectors approaching funding, how many of them get funding and how many wasted is not the right word, but there's a lot of time spent on something that is not being realized into what they thought it would be. Yeah, it is a lot of resources.
Yeah, and also frustration, right? That in the end, you prepare something, the evaluation summary report is saying that your project is great, but it's not going to be funded, All of us who are in this world, we've seen these sentences, which I think are even more difficult to digest than if you hear that basically there were many shortcomings in the proposal.
Yeah. Well, if we going back to the lump sum and the changes, so this is what I also talked with other guests about. The lump sum has been introduced for simplicity reasons, simplifying budget. Yeah, but that's the reason that they have introduced another budgetary principle for reporting on your funding and the financing and the budgeting. But it still remains to be seen if it's going to be a simplicity, if it's going to make things more simple, or if it's going to create problems of different sorts. And this is exactly what you flagged here, which is the core principle of lump sum, is that it's based on, your funding is based on the results. So in large collaborative projects based on work package finalization, that you have your deliverables and ending activities in work package that defines that you get the funding for the activities carried out there, which it sounds logical, but it just create a lot of frustration in the project implementation, because not all projects, no projects run from point A to point C without. Sometimes you need to go back. Wait a minute, we have something here that we actually need to adjust in that work package.
And you are talking about collaborative projects, and it's even more complicated because also you have many partners and so on. But even here with mono beneficiaries project, we see that there are many changes needed to be implemented, but at the same time you define your milestone deliverables and so on, and you shouldn't. I mean, the flexibility in terms of changing the scope is very limited. So it's really difficult. And as a focus is now on technical part, this financial side, which until now with actual cost sometimes was helpful to show, like, look guys, I mean, we were not able to deliver this and that, but we've done this and this and this, and here you have the invoices and this is the cost.
Mhm.
So I have many clients from actual cost. They finish the EIC Accelerator with, let's say, partial results, but they receive the full grant because they tried, to achieve results. They spent the money. They were all able to justify this. But now, no results, no money.
No. In other words, you have to be very, very. One thing is that you have to be very, very attentive to detail when you prepare the proposal, right?
Yeah, don't overpromise, I would say.
But so, which means that you have to try to catch as many things in the proposal phase, so you in the implementation phase that we're talking about in this episode, don't get into troubles or too much trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's my turn to follow.
No. It's every time I talk lump sum, it ends up with the guest and myself. Oh my God!
It was supposed to be simple,
Yeah. And the thing is that there are so many things that we haven't seen yet, consequences of this, because projects have not. Projects are running now. So there will come things.
Actually, this is something interesting. I don't know if you know that lump sum was launched in 2018, still under Horizon 2020 as pilot. So if you analyze, the first projects were finished in 2021, 2022. But when did they publish the first assessment of the lump sum pilot? End of 2021. So actually even before the projects were finished. So my question is, how can we evaluate something that was not even properly implemented?
Yeah, I think things for some, the commission sometimes wants to show that they are agile, they are moving, but here I know. No sources, of course, tell who has said it, but I know from some of my guests that internally in the commission there has been frustration at the layman floor, so to say, of the clerk level, of what will happen, because many things have not been properly, addressed of the possible consequences of, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the general idea is not bad, right? We want to reduce administration. They always say about reducing financial errors thanks to lump sum. But my question is, how are you going to measure that you reduced financial errors if you don't check the financial part?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds great. We will reduce financial errors, but in fact, you are not checking them. It doesn't mean that, they disappear. They are still there.
Yeah.
Basically, you go next to them and you don't see them. You ignore them.
It's just assuming that now we're gonna let it more loose, and then we're gonna close our eyes, put our fingers in the ears. But you still, there's always you still have the possibility for checks. Yeah? So it's that's still hanging there, that Damocles sword.
You mean audits, checks, and so on? Yeah, but also this is not very clear how it's going to work, and this is actually something that was also published in one of the reports published by the auditors, that they were, asking the commission, like, okay, so what about the audits? What are you going to check if we cannot check invoices and so on? And I know, what's the explanation, was the theory and so on, but we haven't seen how it works in practice. Because, for example, in theory, you should still fulfill best value for money. Okay? And it makes sense. But the question is, how are you going to check best value for money if you cannot even check if there is an invoice Okay, so without the invoice, I don't even know that there was supposed to be a best value for money principle and so on. I mean, it's super tricky.
Naturally, for any companies or advisors supporting facilitators for SMEs, you just have to do your best to make an estimation of your costs. And
but let me bring here an interesting topic with personal cost. Okay, so you should estimate your personal cost, and according to the guidance, you should use the personal cost dashboard, which is published by the EC. I don't know if you're familiar how does it work, but basically this is a dashboard developed by the EC, which shows the typical salary cost by country and indicate so-called normal ranges. Okay. The thing is that this is based on data from past projects, and often, it's not updated. And also, if we are talking about deep tech companies, I mean, if you want to have someone with a very specific profile, basically it's expensive. So you have this dilemma. Do I follow, the salary policy I have in my company, and I plan the cost that are real costs that I have in my company, let's say 10K per FTE, or do I stick to this Horizon Europe dashboard, which will be probably 5K in this situation, just to make sure that the evaluator is not going to reject my proposal because my costs are overestimated. There is no good solution, because if you go with dashboard, you are not going to have enough money to hire these people. If you go with real costs, there is a risk that the proposal will be rejected, because the evaluators are instructed to check the cost against this dashboard. So at the same time, I mean, they are following rules. Of course, there is a rule saying that it can be accepted if it's higher, if it's well justified. Then we are entering very subjective criteria. What does it mean that is well justified? So it's something that we see a lot as something very challenging. And many times we have even clients with the proposal funded, but then during the grant agreement preparation phase, the project officer is pushing a lot this topic to clarify, like, why this salary is like this and not like that. And at that point, you cannot show them invoices or pay slips from this person, because they stick to this dashboard, which is outdated. So we have, this is just an example to show why budgeting is so challenging.
Yeah, so early lessons from, so this is one of them, I guess, that you run into. Is there anything else on when you support?
This is, let's say, very, very practical one, right? That and it's also like with very big impact, because many times the main cost category in this kind of projects, it's personal cost. But you also have, you may have a challenge with equipment, because now at the proposal stage, you need to prepare a very detailed depreciation table. It's very time consuming, especially if you need a lot of equipment. Then if you go with subcontracting, you need to define all the details up front. But imagine that I draft the proposal today that's going to start maybe the project in 1 year, and we are talking about the work for 2 years. Do you really think it's possible to get an offer from someone which is binding for 1 year and then describing in detail the work for 2 years?
At all.
Super, super challenging. So it's, I would say it's an art to prepare a good budget, which will be accepted by evaluator, and at the same time, it's close to reality.
Yeah. All right. Anything else in this corner to understand it? I think we've been walking around it, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Because we move anyways into the project implementation pitfalls in the next block.
Yeah, I mean, also, if we analyze, let's say, early lessons from the transition period from actual costs into lump sum, I'm focusing on EIC Accelerator once again. it's like, in my opinion, it was introduced too quickly because, we have lump sum framework. We have some generic rules, but every program is different. And if you have a program like the EIC Accelerator with the investment component, mono-beneficiary, with a very specific payment schedule, because here we don't go with interim payment, but with second pre-financing and things like this. And then you say, okay, we are introducing lump sum without analyzing beforehand the consequences. It can become chaotic, the implementation phase. And actually, this is what happened last year, because the agency in charge was not ready for implementation for this shift. All the project officers, they had a lot of projects with actual costs, then suddenly from one day to another, they need to implement them following lump sum costs, but the system is not ready. It's not clear what to do with this second pre-financing. And as an example, so the second pre-financing in EIC Accelerator, it depends on the percentage of the pre-financing spent in the first reporting period. So it's different, like in the projects with interim payment, when it's paid based on the finished work packages. What does it mean? That when you finish the first reporting period, you need to declare the percentage of the money spent. But we are talking about lump sum project. If we don't track the cost, how can we put a percentage of the cost spent?
Yep.
So okay, you don't have to follow your costs, you don't have to present this, but you need to give us a percentage. It's just an example of why it was so difficult to implement lump sum rules in the EIC Accelerator. My feeling is, that some people are deciding at high level, like, okay, lump sum go for EIC Accelerator from next month, next call, whatever, but we shouldn't forget about the implementation phase. Because I think it's been very challenging, not only for the agency in charge, but also for the beneficiaries, because in the end, they were bearing the consequences, delays in the grant start, in the payments, and also many times they had to redo work twice because of contradictory feedback that they were receiving at the beginning, because also it took time to the project officers to change from actual cost rules to lump sum rules. Yep. So, you were receiving like, okay, do it this way, that way, and then no, please change it because in fact it's lump sum, so we have to go with different system. It's better now. Let's be positive that it has improved.
Yeah.
But I would say that the price was quite high, introducing it so quickly.
I think it should be clear that no matter how professional the Commission want this to be, that they lacked something in that respect. Unfortunately, it's which has created a lot of confusion out there, and is still creating some anxiety. Might be a strong word, but it's creating some insecurities about what's going to happen when we move towards finalizing the first lump sum projects. What will happen when you have doubts, also interpreting the what to say, the word of the law of the rules. There might come into some borderline issue where you don't. Yeah, so it's it's like this, but that's not something really that you can do anything about, you dear facilitator or SME out there. But what we can do here, and especially I'm going to pick Alicya's brain on this, we already started talking about the implementation pitfalls.
My name is Merete Mikkelsen, and I think you should really listen to the grant to get new ideas, hear solutions for other people, and get going with your projects. Good luck.
So the budgeting challenges is exactly this. That's the key element, that you need to try to be as detailed as possible. Do you have anything you want to add in this respect?
But this is at the proposal stage, right? And then if we if we start with the implementation phase, I mean, imagine that you are an EIC Accelerator beneficiary, you have a project and everyone is saying, it's a simplification, don't worry about cost reporting, everything will be so easy, because that's also true that, you hear a lot about this lump sum, you get 2.5 million, don't worry about any cost, even if you spend zero, you will get 2.5 million and so on, like, go for holidays. I would say, don't relax too much, okay? We are still talking about public money, and with public money, there are always some obligations. So let's remember that there are not only financial obligations, so you have other, let's say, transversal obligations, like you have to keep the EC informed about, everything that's happening in your project if you have delays. If anything that's important in your company, in your project is happening, you should inform European Commission, because if they discover later, it may have consequences for you. Then also in the end, you have to report on project status and progress. And once again, this is even more important in lump sum, because this is the only way to convince the Commission that you're implementing the project, that everything is going according to the plan and so on. So with the EIC Accelerator, you have not only periodic and final report, but you also have progress meetings, which are super important. And here also another challenge comes, because both the project officer and external reviewer, they are used to actual cost projects. So still we see that many times when we receive the agenda, I mean, the client receives the agenda for progress meeting, there is a point with financial reporting. You say, I mean, financial reporting is not here anymore. So what should I present? So we really recommend to the client, so even though there is no official obligation to track your costs, to follow this topic, do it just in case, because you never know when they are going to ask you. So this would be my advice for EIC beneficiaries. Don't relax too much. Make sure that if someone is asking you about your cost, you can show something. Okay, maybe you don't need all these processes that you need to implement if you have an actual cost project. But still, it would be good to control if you are underspending, overspending, not only for Horizon Europe, not only for progress meeting and the reviewer, but also for you, to see if you are suddenly not spending too much. Because if you spend more, no one is going to give you more money. I mean, there is this limit of 2.5.
I think it's very simple, right? Like with any other thing you do with your company, like any other thing, there's any other thing where you have to plan, where you have to make a budget for a whatever investment you do, you have to keep a string in the finances as you move on with that commercial project or whatever. It's just use the same principle. Keep yourself. It's always the best thing you can do for yourself is to just keep everything recorded. Keep invoices, keep track on the hours you spend, whatever. Make something so you can always check. You can always drag out, pull out data. Figures on how the project is moving, both financially and content-wise.
I do agree, although it's not so easy, because at internal level, many times you have some processes, because you need to report this way to your investors or to your shareholders, whatever you decided. And you have a structure, for example, for accounting and so on. Then if you have no rules for Horizon Europe or its EIC Accelerator in this case, okay, follow the rules that you apply for different projects or different, company activities. But then Horizon Europe is very specific. You have work packages. So it can happen that for the progress meeting, you will be asked to report cost per work package. So if you don't track it this way, so somehow if you don't adapt your system to, this particularities of the EIC Accelerator, it's not so easy to get quickly, result of report of the cost. So sometimes having too much freedom, it's not helping you, because in the end, if you are asked specific question, it will be difficult for you to give an answer. If there are some rules, even though they are overcomplicating your life at the beginning because you have to adapt to Horizon Europe rules and so on, at least you can have this feeling that everything is under control.
Exactly. It's a frame.
Yeah.
Everything is.
We need rules. I mean, in our life, we need some rules.
Especially with 2.5 million euro project.
Yeah, which is just a part of the funding, because also if we have the investment, okay, there are different rules and so on, but definitely it's bigger money, and both the grant and the investment part, what they say, it's interlinked. So if you have any problem with a grant, it can have an impact on the investment. And the same, if there is any issue with investment, it may have impact on the grant. So challenging.
I think this is everything I when I've been having these conversations. It always ends in the same place. That's what we're talking about now. They say it's free, but treat it as it's not free.
Yeah.
For your own sake, and if there will come questions, because even the commission themselves are not totally clear yet. We talked about audit earlier, right? It's not clear yet what the regime will be, and if there is an audit, it's just a very good thing to have your receipts. It's a very good thing to have a time management system from your company that you can show how many hours has been spent on this.
Mm-hmm. Especially, I would also say as a tip, if you have another actual cost ongoing in parallel, because if you get an audit from an actual cost project, you may be asked to prove that there is no double funding. So if you have in parallel EIC Accelerator with lump sum, how are you going to prove that there is no double funding if you don't track the cost of EIC Accelerator?
Mm-hmm.
So you say it's a little bit tricky. Okay, I have no obligation for EIC Accelerator, but I have for another project. So if I'm not able to prove this for another project, it may have an impact on my EIC Accelerator. So definitely, if we have clients with more than one project, another one with actual cost, we definitely advise them to follow the same rules as for actual cost.
Yeah, and you know what? It's just also a matter of you as a company being on top of what you do.
Yeah,
having the feeling that it's in control. It's not.
Yeah, but also, all the responsibility and all the decisions are now on the SMEs, because, everyone is saying like it's simplification, it's easy, don't worry. But then, they check the rules in detail, they analyze the topic, they hear about lump sum, and then suddenly they have to take a decision with contradictory feedback, like no financial reporting, but, just in case you have to, follow your cost. Don't worry about this, but it can happen that maybe an audit will be in the future. So in the end, it's also difficult. I mean, the SMEs in the position of they have to dedicate time in the end to analyze the situation and take a decision, and no one is going to tell them it's a good decision because it's too early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was pitfalls. We already started talking about best practices and workarounds. Final block here before the toughest challenge. Strategies for SMEs. We're talking about it already, right? Structure yourself. Don't get too enthusiastic about all the freedom.
Yeah, I would say, as a tip, as an advice, to try to understand better lump sum rules, especially in your EIC Accelerator project, having in mind that there are some specific rules. Analyze them and only then take a decision. So don't believe in simplification, okay? Mm-hmm. Double check what does it mean, and then evaluate the risk, if it's worth checking cost, or if you see that still the risk is really low and the consequences are not worrying you, then basically don't do this cost tracking. But the thing is that sometimes I see that the companies, they go too quickly into implementation somehow without analyzing all the rules. And I also understand it, because it's very difficult to to see all the angles, but it can have consequences. I mean, in general, don't believe that you will get 2.5 million without any obligations.
Yeah, exactly. And there, I think it just keep that, like we've been now. It starts to become a red thread in this recording, right? But it just like you get taxpayers' money. You get it from a funding scheme, public funding scheme. Treat it like that. Treat it like something that you don't just piss away, or that you don't have to take care about anything about tracking or whatever. How you spend that money. Do track how you spend the money. Do follow your own budgets. Do make sure that this doesn't get out of hand just because you don't have to justify it formally by invoices. So by all means.
Yeah, I mean, I would always say that try to be on the safe side. I mean, there is definitely, if you follow the cost, there are not going to be negative consequences. If you don't follow them, there may be some consequences. So maybe it's safer to go with this first option, especially that we are talking about big amount of money, because we didn't mention, but in the EIC Accelerator, a simple company can get up to 2.5 million, just one partner. In collaborative projects, many times we have many partners, so an SME would get a budget of 300 for 5 years. Here we have 2.5 million for 2 years. It's really an important amount.
Yeah, exactly. I had something on the tip of my tongue. I lost it. Comes back if it's important.
And don't think I'm against the lump sum. I mean, I really like it. I mean, and I think somehow it makes sense. That the thing is the implementation.
Look, it's not a matter of being against or this is a matter of what was the intention, simplification, and then it's naively. Many probably thought it would be simplification, but it's just another set of rules. It's different. It's this different frame, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's simpler. Some things are easier, but then it has an effect in other ends. So it's a matter of where which leg you put the weight in when you perceive this. It's yes, some organizations would think it's super nice. Way of approaching it, and for some it just creates other problems that they would rather be have the old way of budgeting. But it's simply, I love simplification, but I also early on when I talked to people in this podcast, they shared with me that it was it was not as simple as the Commission wanted it to look like, and especially this thing that you have consequences that nobody might even know yet that will come. The Commission hasn't even thought of, and that's what is, of course, that I insist on shedding a light on, because then, at least if there's anyone from the Commission listening to this, they can start reflecting about it. Probably already have, but it's
and also let's have another look on this. I think it is a simplification, but I'm not sure if this is a simplification for the beneficiaries. It is a simplification for the
Commission. Yeah.
So, but it's okay. I mean, I don't mind, but let's speak loudly about this, because if the companies, they are hearing all the time, we'll see it's a simplification for you, this is the objective, and so on, we may give them false hopes.
Yeah. It's so, again, back to what we talked about 5 minutes ago. Consider this public money, taxpayers' money that you're spending, and just pay it the respect that it needs in your planning and the way you spend it and the way you track what you spend.
And I think this is a perfect summary of this conversation.
Indeed. The Grant. Last block, toughest challenge. Well, let's zoom in here now on the people you've been helping, the SMEs you've been helping in terms of this. It's what have you?
Well, I would say it was this first year. It was the most difficult for first and second call beneficiaries. So we're talking about 24, sorry. Because this was the first year with the change, and no one was ready, to be honest. The executive agency was not ready, the beneficiaries was not ready, because also you had many beneficiaries who applied before for funding with actual costs, and suddenly they needed to change their proposal to lump sum. So they were very lost also, like in between the rules. And then they were receiving many times contradictory feedback. So, finally they understood that this is lump sum. They drafted the proposal in lump sum. Then they are starting with grant agreement preparation, and they are receiving a list of requirements as for actual cost. So then they are starting, to draft many things differently, having in mind actual costs. So then 2 months later, the project officer is saying, no, sorry, we make a mistake. It's not actual cost anymore. It's lump sum. Change it again. So I think it was very difficult for the companies to understand, because also many times, SMEs, they have business approach. I mean, you tell them to do this, they do it quickly, and they want to go with another step. And it was challenging to explain them why does it work like this, and at the same time it was very difficult to plan when the project is going to start, because you can estimate this based on the previous experience, but there was a change, so everything was longer. So they were planning to start the projects quicker, but in the end there were many delays without any explanation, so they had to start the project later. And also from cash flow perspective, it affected them in terms of refinancing. At last but not least, also to adapt the system for this new reporting, because once again, there is contradictory feedback. And suddenly they discover that the second payment will be based on the percentage of the money spent. First, they were explained, and based on the lump sum rules, it was clear that it will be based on work package finished in the first reporting period. So also you draft the work plan thinking about this, finish, some work packages in reporting period 1 to be able to get some money. I think this was the most challenging for the companies to adapt to this new system. But once again, I think no one was ready.
Yeah, but and often also, like companies, it's not public funding for what they want to do. It's not always easy for them to understand that world.
Yeah. I mean, many times it's the first project for them. It's a big surprise.
And then they get something like this where it goes in different directions and stuff like this with the important part of it, the financing, right, with the funding. So.
And usual things, but it's not only related to lump sum, that suddenly you are asked to provide some documents within five working days. You go quickly because you think that thanks to this, the grant agreement will be signed quicker. You submit documents and then you wait 2 months feedback to hear that everything that you submitted 2 months ago, you have to change it, and please do it as soon as possible, maybe even tomorrow. So it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, see, that's the prerogative of the funding owner, right?
Yeah.
So, but man.
So, it's not only happening with lump sum, but with lump sum, it was kind of a massive because of the change and because it was new for everyone. And then that you are asked to implement some changes in the system, but the system is not ready for lump sum because it's still with actual costs. And then the SME is asking, like, so how is it possible, that we were granted a project, but the system cannot support this?
On that depressing note, we are ending this conversation. It's not the last one. We have another one left. And
we
actually, I forgot what we're going to talk about in the last one. What is it? Do you remember?
I would say that it's about biggest challenges in general in EIC Accelerator?
Most challenging financial rules for SMEs in EU project. My best guess is that we're also going to touch upon lump sum in that. If not,
Could be, or if not, freelancers, definitely SME owners. But also there is a secondment still waiting for our discussion. So maybe we will be able to touch it because it's very popular, let's say, in the EIC Accelerator.
all right. I'm just going to land the plane before we say goodbye. So, dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really, really hope that this is a nice, good, critical mass help for everybody else there who are either SMEs themselves or facilitating funding for SMEs. If you like this episode, and it's the first one you listen to, so naturally you have 2 more episodes in this series. I actually think I forgot to create a specific site for this series. So I will create that and make a link. Don't worry. So you'll find it. And so if you go to my platform, thegrant.eu, you'll find under Podcast Universe, you'll find more than 180 podcast episodes about R&D funding. It's not everything is about rules and regulations for SMEs, naturally, but there's everything that you can think of in all corners of proposal preparation, project implementation, digging into different corners of beneficiaries, the research world, and so on and so forth. So check it out. And when you're there, don't forget to support a humble podcaster with submitting or joining my email list. And you do that at the bottom of each site. I have an online form where you subscribe to that. So thank you in advance for that. Finally, connect with me on LinkedIn because that's where the fun happens. That's where the flow is. So Niels Tudor-Winther, find me there and connect and go like my The Grant site, naturally the Grant page on LinkedIn. So you get all my, I am trying to create a community of granters. As I call you all, like it, and then you will get the flow of information there. Marketing, it's also where I pick up my guests.
Yeah, I confirm. Just go there, like it, connect with you on LinkedIn, and maybe one day you will be sitting here.
Indeed. Alicja, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
And we will stay in touch for the next episode. Now let's say goodbye to the dear listeners. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find a link to the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Alicia's personal LinkedIn site and a link to the Polite Europe website. Further, there's a link to the IP Helpdesk site and the NCP overview. Next week, there is a new episode in my implementation series, and this time with focus on the consortium meetings where I have Nicole Schmidt in the virtual podcast studio. We look forward to that.